Hi, and welcome to this presentation on how to make educational videos. My name's Brad Ladwig, and I work in the Department of Chemical Engineering at Monash University. This is a quick outline of my presentation. I'm going to talk about the room that I'm filming in here and the equipment that I'm using. I'm going to run through how I collect the footage to make a teaching video, and then how I edit or do the post-production of that video in software on my Mac. I'm going to talk about where I host the videos, what it cost to purchase all of this equipment and set up the facility, and I'm going to finish up by talking about what's the time commitment, how long does it actually take to make a teaching video. So to begin with, the room. So the only really key requirement for setting up a room to make teaching videos is that it's dark and that it's quiet. So the reason it's important to be dark is we want to use a specific lighting setup. So we want the lighting to illuminate the subject, myself in this case, and we don't want any light coming from outside that will cause shadows or change the temperature of the light. In terms of sound, we really only want to hear the person who's talking, and we don't want to hear things from outside either. So in this case, this room works quite well. It has a carpeted floor and timber walls, and so the carpet absorbs a bit of the sound, stops it bouncing around and us having echoes here in the room. In terms of the equipment, behind me is a white backdrop, and that's really just a piece of white linen cloth that's held on a stand, and it's quite high. It goes above me and across to both sides. There are two side lights that illuminate just the backdrop, so they don't light me. They're actually behind me on my right and my left, so you can see them here now when I cut away the footage, and they make the backdrop very bright white, and that's so that the backdrop blends in with the white on the rest of the video. In front of me, to my right and left, are two more lights on the sides. They're identical to the ones behind me, and they're for illuminating me. Ideally, it would be good to have them at about 45 degrees to a center line to the camera here. This room's a little bit too small, so they're a little bit closer to the camera, but they still do the main job, which is to illuminate me and make sure there's not too many shadows. And to help out with that, I additionally have one extra light, which is up above me, and that's shining down. All of the lights, the bulbs inside these stands are 5,500 Kelvin cool white color bulbs. They're compact fluorescent bulbs. The four lights on my left and right each have 5 bulbs in them, and the light stands that I've purchased allow for those 5 bulbs to be individually controlled. So there's 5 switches on the back of each one, and in fact I'm not using all 5 in each one of them at the moment. You can adjust them to get the lighting as you wish. Professional video cameras are expensive, and when I came to set up this facility they were beyond the budget that I had. So instead what I use is a Canon digital SLR. The specific model is the EOS 70D. I did a bit of research into different digital SLRs before I purchased this one, and this one appeared to have the best video capture facilities. If you're interested, you can search online about the video capture facilities of digital SLRs, and you can read in great detail. But to be brief, this one has quite modern and very effective autofocus facilities. When you're capturing the sound to make these teaching videos, it's quite important that you don't use the camera microphone. It's not very high quality and it picks up a lot of outside noise. So what I'm using is this microphone that's attached to my shirt here. It's a lapel microphone or lavalier microphone, and it's connected by a wire through to a 3.5mm jack on the side of the camera. The reason it uses a wire is because it's quite cheap. It costs about $30 on eBay. If you want to use a wireless one, that's also quite good, although it's significantly more expensive. The camera itself is mounted on a tripod, and I've got it mounted up quite high so that it's about eye level with me. So how do we actually collect the footage? So first of all, to make these videos, I make some slides, and I make them in Keynote on a Mac, although you could use PowerPoint on a PC or on a Mac. I'm actually looking at those slides on a laptop which is directly behind the camera, and what I'm doing is using my mobile phone as a remote control to advance the slides. So there are other options you can use for remote control, but it's important that you're able to have some prompting about what you're talking about. If you want to use a very formal script, then you can get some teleprompter software for your PC or for something like an iPad. But I'm quite comfortable, and I imagine a lot of academic staff would be quite comfortable just talking to PowerPoint slides or Keynote slides. In my case, the camera has a rotatable screen. So I'm actually able to rotate the screen around so it's facing to the front. And so when I look at the camera, I can actually see myself on the screen so that I can check I'm roughly in frame and make sure that I'm not veering too far out. Post-production, this is how I take the footage and make it into a final video like the one you're watching now. The software that I use is called Final Cut Pro X, and that only runs on a Mac. I already had that software available to me. I didn't purchase it as part of the budget for this project. And I'll talk in a moment about what everything costs to put this together. The first step is to export the slides that I use from Keynote as still images and then import those into the project. And so I'll show you briefly in Final Cut Pro how I do that. So once you've got the slides there, you can import the footage from the camera. So that's a quite straightforward process. I just take the SD card from the camera and put it into my laptop, and this is how I import that footage. And so once you have that footage on the laptop in the Final Cut Pro project, then you can work with it. If you have the lighting and camera set up correctly, there's not much that you'll need to do with the footage. So in my case, I've tuned the lighting, and I've used the manual settings on the camera. So I've manually adjusted the aperture and the shutter speed and the ISO setting to get the brightness, the color of the subject myself as I like it. If it's not quite right, especially if the white of the background here is not blending seamlessly into the white of your slides, then you may need to adjust the footage a little bit, and you can do that in Final Cut Pro, but I'm not going to talk about that here. Finally, this footage of me obviously takes up the whole frame, but I only want to occupy one small part of the final video on the right hand side, and so I need to crop this footage. So this is what the raw footage looks like. You can see the backdrop, the lights on either side of me, and the space to the edges of the backdrop. I'm going to crop it in from both sides and then move it to the side. If it's not the right size, you can resize it as well, but I don't recommend you do that. It's much better when you're filming the original footage that you get yourself at the right size in the frame, because when you resize it, it creates extra processing that's required, and it decreases slightly the quality that you end up with. So if you can shoot in full high definition and then not resize it in Final Cut Pro, the final product will look good. You need to adjust the length of each of those little slides so that it manually adjusts, it manually matches the footage. So obviously when you come to talk to your slides, you will spend longer or shorter talking to each slide than what you planned originally. That's just the nature of a lecturer. And I place short transitions between each of those slides. I choose to only use very simple transitions, which is called the dissolve transition. And that's because I think it's important that the person viewing the video focuses on the message that I'm trying to convey. I don't want them to get distracted by fancy transitions. Of course, you can use whatever you like, but my preference is to use a very simple, clean transition. So once the video has been made and you're ready to host it somewhere, I upload them all to YouTube, and I upload them using a high-spec format, which is Apple ProRes 422, which is one of the options that you can output from Final Cut Pro. What this means is that outputting that file from the software is very fast, and there's very little processing that's done on the machine here locally, but the file that you do output is very large. That's okay. If you're uploading it to YouTube on campus over the wired network, that will still happen in a few minutes, so that's not a big issue. but I wouldn't recommend trying to upload those files from home over your home broadband connection. If you're doing that, you need to output it using a different format like MP4 format from Final Cut Pro. YouTube will take that high quality, high resolution video, and it will downsize it and produce several different versions of it at different resolutions and actually in a few different formats. So that's great because it means that whoever's watching your video on whatever device, whether it's a computer with a large screen, a laptop, a tablet, an iPad, an iPhone, or some other device, even a web-connected TV, YouTube will serve up to them a version of your video that's in the right resolution and the right file format for their device. So it's much better that you leave that to YouTube to create those different versions, different formats, different sizes. They're the experts in that. Finally, how much does it all cost? So the camera, the tripod that it's standing on, the lighting equipment all around me here, and this microphone, I bought them all from eBay. The window covering, so there were some windows down to along one side of this room. They were all covered with a thick cloth that both blocks out the light but also absorbs a bit of the sound to stop it bouncing off that hard glass surface. And I bought a staple gun as well as the fabric from Spotlight, which is a shop that sells fabric and art and craft supplies. I just used a staple gun to staple gun it all the way along the wooden window frame. The total cost for all of the lighting and camera and tripod plus the fabric to block out the windows and the staple gun was about $2,000 in December 2013. The post-production, as I mentioned, is done on a Mac, and a dedicated machine was purchased by the Department of Chemical Engineering for that purpose, and that also cost about $2,000. Of course, just setting up the facility is not the only thing that costs money. Time costs money. So I'm sure you're very interested to know how long does it take to set up the facility and how long does it take to make these videos. Well, once all of the equipment was ordered in, it took me about a day to set up all the lighting and get it all positioned and ready to roll. In terms of making an individual video, once the slides are prepared, and in fact that can usually take the longest period of time, the filming is very quick depending on how many takes you need. The post-production is also fairly quick once you learn how to use the software and once you've settled on a format. So I make all of my teaching videos using the same format every time, and so it's quite fast for me. Once I've made the slides, I can record 5 or 6 short teaching videos in about a half a day. So that's it from me. I hope you found it informative, that you've learned something about how to make teaching videos, and if you'd like to know more, please get in touch with me. Thanks for listening.